Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and this is Trauma Informed Prevention Services of the Inland Empire, TIPS IE. And today, joining me, we have Joyce Clarke, Shor Denny, Tamika Carter, and James "That Yoga Dude" Woods. And as always, we're looking to bring new information, insight to what's going on with regards to, well, frankly, the Inland Empire and the trauma that we have to endure, either from our youth all the way to adults, as we just sort of manage getting through this time, this window, this pandemic.
Um, with Floyd, I think that with all of the protests that happened, that literally a line was drawn, and no one is willing to step back. And I think with that line is where the NFL had to go. I believe I saw on the news where some, and I'm not a sports follower, but some coach was saying that he dared his team to kneel or something, or there was like some big repercussion that he was going to do if any of his players knelt on the field. And I was taken aback. But now I see that the players have leveraged, as you said, and and they've now made it moot what that man said. And it came down to the point that either you're still my in or you're not. Right. And I think what our men said, thank God what our men said, and our men need to say it from every part of this industry, right? Even as a nonprofit working in a community where my money comes from somewhere else, and I'm working with African-American men who are dependent on the systematic powers that be. And I'm seeing them having to hold themselves. And I'm saying, when do we get to be us? When do we get to not have these microaggressions coming against us that we have to just swallow all the time? When is the men around me gonna take this model and stand and say, you know what, I know that I might get a contract from you, but this is more, this is bigger. When are we independently, Black women and Black men and people of color and people not of color, all of us, when are we independently gonna say, I take my personal stand here? I've drawn a line. I'm not going back. And with us moving forward to equality, what we're looking at is, it's a biblical thing of pushing off the old and coming into the new, right? We're coming into a brand new state of Blackness in America. And we need to step into that with our heads high.
Sure, to answer that question about the coach who dared his team to kneel, I am sure this was after the NFL commission decided on a new law, after Colin and everybody went to court about this. The new law, and if I don't remember correctly, one of you gentlemen, please correct me, was that you would be fined or suspended from games if you knelt. So your alternative, your option was to stay in the locker room until the national anthem was over and then come back out. And that was the dare. In some other sports, it didn't work. That didn't work because we had one young lady in soccer, I believe, she turned her back. Their group holds hands. So she turned her back. And she wasn't Black. She was white. And you appreciate that kind of allegiance to do that. And these basketball players, football players, all of them, all the sports who are highly paid, they have decided really that they would rather have to deal with the trauma and get on a budget than give up their manhood. Let's go back, to the civil rights movement. George Floyd unfortunately gave his life to be Rosa Parks. And this is a good thing that's happening right now because our sports figures are role models. And thank you, James, for kind of laying that out, that they do have a spotlight, they do have a platform, the higher LeBron James and Kwesi Leonard. So they're using it, they're aware of it. And let's be real clear, I don't think we're going to see many consequences for these men. I don't think so.
I wonder how much money they lost, right? Like, how much money did the NBA lose that day?
Well, they quoted that in the article, because remember they had already lost 5 or 6 billion during COVID, and then they lost some more because they had to set the bubble up.
Right.
So for them not to not even be playing in the bubble, you just throw up your hands if you're, you know, there. If you're the towel guy, if you're the coach of the whatever, because you're losing money on a daily basis. And Disney's not that happy either, because they're losing money. It has the domino effect.
Everybody's losing money. Why should you pay?
And
I'm
it's,
losing money.
million.
Are you losing money? Because I've lost money.
that's a whole other podcast.
Here's the bubble. The NBA bubble has reported $200 million price tag with up to $1 billion worth of revenue from television that they would lose if, this is just if, the NBA says we're done. We're not even going to finish playing Dallas and whoever else. Remember, the Lakers are in the playoffs.
They are. And I think even LeBron has been addressed with the value of a COVID championship is not as important as being civilly engaged right now. When people look back, athletes are having an understanding that me winning this off year championship is not going to be as important as me stepping in and using my power to say, I'm with this big movement, the thing that's going on, the actual opportunity to create change.
That's right.
The sense of value and understanding has been impacted by COVID itself. So it's a time of tremendous transition and change. And even, once again, shout out to LeBron and all those other male athletes who did the best thing that they can do is raise awareness of Breonna Taylor's killers are still out there, saying that, yeah, we are of high value because we generate a lot of money, but what about our women?
That's
what about
right.
our children?
That's
Those are still the people that we consider to be high value. So if you consider me of high value because I produce for you, then you need to consider my women, you need to consider my children, and all other parts of my culture together.
How beautiful.
That is the key. Shortman, you said something. You said a huge thing when you said the line was drawn with George Floyd.
That's right.
So as someone who's been an activist, I've fundraised, I've marched, I've spoken, I've probably thrown something I shouldn't have thrown. But no, I didn't. Just kidding. But that was where I was, right? When people were marching, and I didn't jump in that, right? I'm like, is this the thing, right? This needs to be the thing that makes us confront the microaggressions. And I really thought, as I saw the angst, the rage, the just people being done with racism as a whole, I said, this is going to be the thing. See, this isn't about the streets and marching. This is about when you're in the boss's office and he says your black female coworker is problematic, you stop him dead in his tracks.
Yes.
That's what's happening now. That's what I want to see more of, because it is those individual decisions, right? You know, it's amazing what the athletes have done, and I think it's so important, right? Because I was starting to wonder at what point we as a community would just say, well, you know what, you guys are elitists too. You guys benefit from the system that oppresses us as well, and if you're going to continue to remain silent about it, perhaps you're the other. And so I'm glad that prior to that happening, I don't know if it ever would, people love their sports, but I'm glad that they took that stand, because it says so much. And I've said several times, you know, there are things we got to deal with inside of the house, right? There are issues going on outside of the house, but the tension between our men and our women, and the disdain for our children, and the neglect of our children, and the abuse of our children, that has to stop. It has to stop in the house. And I think that, you know, there are parallels to what we do and how we treat one another within our community to how we're being treated on the outside. And that's not to give license to say, because I kill you, it's okay to kill me. However, there are some parallels that we're going to have to look at, and it's hard because I'm quite liberal myself, but there are some individual things, and that's what I saw. You know, that's what I saw with my Jay-Z and my Nas. I saw that. I hear that it's time. I mean, for Nas to say in a hook, "Deal with your trauma," that was gold for me. To say make it off of Section 8, that was gold to me, and I think the entrepreneur video ends with a guy who I think he ended up buying the plantation, right? that his people were raised on. And so as we guys talked about the Bible, so I'm gonna bring it on in there too, right? We talk about how the riches of the evil will be stored up and will be passed over to the righteous.
That's right.
So I think
That's
it's
right.
such a moment, such a time as this, that it is so important to draw that line, to take that stand, to stop swallowing those microaggressions, to stop giving the benefit of the doubt all the dang time, and just say, hey, what are you talking about? That was racist. I don't like that. I'm not going to stand for that. I'll take my bags and go home. And I think it's time for that. And I think, I know y'all, I'm on music a lot this week, but, even we go back to 20, whenever it was when Beyonce made her bold statement, best revenge is your paper. We're some of the biggest consumers. Best revenge is your paper. Black women especially. But that's another tangent.
Tamika, you kind of touched on something. The trauma that happens in Black households has to stop, and because they get all this trauma out in the world, on the job, and just in society, period. Too often it's unchecked. It's not. There's no therapist in the household, so they do bring it home. But this kind of made me smile when I read the Los Angeles Sentinel, today, this morning, as a matter of fact. And the Bloods and the Crips have come together in a peaceful demonstration with a pastor, Reverend Sept, leading them, saying, I'm going to use Shor's line, we have drawn a line in the sand. Yeah. And this is with the Blake killing. Enough is gone past enough. So for the Bloods and the Crips to stop killing each other for even 10 minutes and look at the reality of this situation, that is just monumental in how I really am optimistic about the peace that is going to finally begin to pervade Black society and the respect our Black men are eventually going to get. This is it. There's no going back.
I'm so excited, right? Even E40, right?
Back.
E40 dropped an EP. I'm all on the music, yo. He dropped an EP. In it, he quotes maybe non-melanated children saying, forget you, Mom, forget you, Dad. I don't like that you don't like people because of the color of their skin. So even this generation is starting to make some mental, the non-melanated babies are drawing their line in the sand against their parents sometimes, against their grandparents sometimes. I mean, he even, I think in one of the songs, uses a clip from one of the chants when Huey Newton was in prison and some of the Panthers were in prison. Black is beautiful, set our warriors free. And so when we think about Bloods and we think about Crips and we think about how many of us are incarcerated and we think about the heart of some of those people, there's so much to be said. I think one of us the other day had to talk about people voting, right? People voting have been formerly incarcerated. Like, could you imagine if everyone who had been locked up by a penal system that was unjust now had the right to vote in and out?
A lot of them do now. A lot of them.
Right. That's her. That's in a blue state.
We're like, all right, we're doing like this, ready to go.
Well, go to the polls on November 3rd, where you're going to get your ballot in the mail and check off that it's saying yes, that proposition, yes, ex-cons can vote, because 90% of them are our people.
And I think that in one of our coming up videos in October, that what we'll do, and I'll have to talk to my producers and the sponsor, but I would really like to do, how do we do that ballot, right? How do we fill that puppy out? Where do we take it? I think that being a community here, that this helps with our mental health, having a plan for our people to see, what are we going to do to get our vote out, and what is our community doing? I think is going to be powerful and help, our community members. Maybe even we can put up, Glenn, a sheet that says where our polling places are going to be, and they're drop-off boxes, right?
They're both. They're both. It's some areas are going to have location centers where you drop it off in a box. It'll be manned with a person sitting there masked. Or your polling place is going to start October 31 through November 3, and you can just go to your polling place right in your neighborhood and do that. I don't know how Riverside County is going to do it, but those are the two options that are available. I know that in my area, in Riverside, we are doing October 31 through November 3, the polling place. But some areas that are smaller are just going to do locations, because we used to use a church, and the church may not want to do that level of sanitizing for us to be in there. So they're looking for other places to do it in, or empty malls. You can go to the mall and there's an empty store. It used to be a Kmart or whatever it was, and you can go in there and just drop it off. So
I'm gonna make a national, or whoever sees this, I'm gonna ask you guys to video yourself voting. I know you can't video in the booth, and I don't mean video what you're writing down. I mean, when you go to drop it off, do a selfie of you dropping your ballot in. So
okay, that's illegal. I'm sorry, I'm a poll.
It's illegal? What can we do?
Hold on.
What about them stickers?
Hold on. They tried it 2 years ago, and it got a little crazy because it held up the line. You're inside, you're about to drop it, or you're standing outside the booth. So what you can do is, after you have voted and you have on your sticker, you can step outside, you're 100 feet away, and there's always signage. You know, the big sign in the lawn that says vote here. Well, you can take a picture right outside the polling place.
Well, I think that we should cover Facebook with all of these voting pictures, so that our friends on the other side see the count, right? Because one of the things that they're saying is that they'll dispute the count, the vote, because it's all going to be mail in. You know, you don't see those people standing in lines. So,
but that one has nothing to do with the other, because absentee voting has been around forever. If you're in college at Howard University and you send in your vote.
What's that got to do with anything in today's state? I'm saying that we need some visual proof that millions of people voted, and not something that we would talk about in a reasonable conversation. I'm saying that this is unreasonable, that we need to find a way to show that every single one of us voted on social media, so that we can see the numbers, because that's going to be one of the things that they're saying with mail-in ballots, that you don't see that ballot getting, but you don't see that person at the poll. But you know who we are going to see at the polls are a bunch of the other people voting to stand there to show those lines, to say, no, we voted, your people didn't vote. So all I'm saying is that this is a way to say that, show that we all individually voted for the masses that be, is that we take a picture, like you said, safely and lawfully, with our little, like, you know, you guys said with the
right, the sticker on,
and take that picture so that we have millions of people voting, so we can see that.
Now this is one of the things you can do. You're getting your ballot the beginning of October, that you're getting your ballot at home.
Early voting starts October 22nd.
No, you're getting the ballot. The early voting means when you can drop it off or mail it. You can do either one. But if you're an absentee voter, you get your ballot the 1st of October. But now that Governor Newsom says everybody gets a ballot at home in the mail, we will, all 33 million of us in California will get that ballot at our home address. So I have a post office right here in my complex. I can stand there in front of my mail room and take my picture, but I can also do what I normally do, which is I hold on to it until the day I go to the poll to be a poll worker, and I drop it in the box. I just do it because I like the feel of that.
I'm glad you brought that up, poll. Sorry, you brought up poll worker.
Go ahead.
And that's because that's something I did catch on the news and hadn't thought about, right? So because of COVID, we know a lot of our poll workers are people who have compromised systems, so we are definitely looking to our younger folks, our younger population, our healthier population, to step up this year. We're looking for our college students who are all riled up about everything. And so, you know, that's just a call. I guess I kind of am a younger person.
Yes, you are, girl.
I am looking to partner with one of the women's groups that I work with, who does a lot of advocacy around voting. So I'll
Yes,
be
and
hearing about that soon.
they're calling poll workers now. I got my call yesterday, and this will be my fifth year being, was it my fourth year being a poll worker? Fourth year being a poll worker. And she told me about all the changes and that I'd be working 4 days instead of 1 day, and a 3.5 hour training instead of a 1 hour training, because of all the different new protocols. And I'll be working 4 days instead of 1 day, and I'll be working 10 hours a day at a location that we don't know
So
yet.
if you know a poll worker, send them some flowers or pay for a massage for them.
Is
We
that because there's a
appreciate it.
shortage? I mean,
Is that what?
they need support. Is that because there's a shortage that you have all of those hours? Do people need
No.
to go and register?
Well, there's no shortage of anything. It simply is because everybody's getting their ballot in the mail. They want people to start mailing them in earlier because because this is a general election and it is so contested, like the Obama elections. They found themselves not having enough time to count before the legislative deadline, which is always 2 weeks after November 3rd. You kind of declare the winner, who just is trailing so far behind they could not catch up, and the electoral votes. But you have a couple of weeks after that to finish counting so that a candidate can contest. What the registrars have all asked for is more days to count. Even though I may mail my ballot in October the 3rd, it sits in a bin at the registrar voters office in Moreno Valley until the polls open November 3rd at 7. Then all those people in the office start tearing open envelopes to start counting, so that by 8 o'clock, when the polls close and we who are poll workers get our huge bins and boxes back to the registrar's office by 10 o'clock, because we all have deadlines, they start working 24 hours around the clock to tell the news, Channel 5, Obama's winning, McCain is losing. Biden's winning, Trump is losing. Trump and Biden are up. And they keep feeding the news people this for 24 hours because each candidate wants to know whether they give a victory party or whether burn the place down. So they want to change that. They want to start counting ballots when they get them.
That's what they should be doing.
There's no should, because every candidate is allowed to have one of their staff in the room. Before I was a poll worker, I worked at the registrar voters office just for the voting, Obama's last year, 2016. So what happens is Biden has one of his staff people sit in the room where they're being counted, and they're being counted by a machine and people. And we're sitting at a table, kind of smoothing out that tri-folded thing so that it goes into the machine smoothly. And they sit there. They can't say anything. They can't touch anything. And they're more than 6 feet apart. But they're in the room while all of us are counting, just in case somebody says, oh, voted for Trump, let me tear this up and put it in the trash. Let me stuff it down my bra till I get outside.
Well, how are those two people found? I think we're going beyond where we.
No, it's not found. That's just normal. Somebody on your candidate's team automatically watches the vote counting.
So it's from each candidate.
Absolutely, whether you're a councilman running for Congress, and some people don't send anybody because, they're congressmen, they're okay with that. But if it's hotly contested, you've got two councilmen, I don't know, Corey Jackson against somebody else, and they've had this heated exchange going all through the campaign, they will send people to sit there and watch the count. Yeah. That's just normal.
I have to confess, we have covered an enormous spectrum of trauma-filled issues today. Right. And most importantly, I believe we've had a trauma-informed panel bringing these issues to light. Everything from voting, the irregularities, to violence in the community, to our sports heroes finding their conscience and standing upon that, and even to the point of grandparents and grandchildren interacting in a healthy and compassionate way, despite the challenges that we have in the environment. But when you put all that together, what we're doing here at Trauma-Informed Prevention Services of the Inland Empire is we're bringing out the issues that are important to the people in this community,
Yes.
and helping them with the coping capacity to just get through these challenges and have a more vibrant and productive Inland Empire. And I'm eager to see the results of this conversation, the ones we've had before and the ones that are coming up in the future, transform this community to really become a vibrant place of California and nationally, especially if you look at the size of our population as it relates to the rest of the nation. We're influence waiting to happen, and I'm proud to say this panel is facilitating the acceleration of that eventuality. So on behalf of James Woods, Tamika Carter, Shor Denny, and Joyce Clarke, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Share the conversation. Joyce, tell them how to reach us.
Always, always. Love to hear your comments. Call us at 951-282-7173. Again, 951-282-7173. Or if you just love emails, write us at tips, T-I-P-S, .inlandempire, cal, C-A-L, @gmail.com. One more time, tips, T-I-P-S, .inlandempire, cal, C-A-L, @gmail.com. Thank you. Love to hear from you.
And in closing, as always, I encourage each and every one of you, be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please.